Hello, everybody. Welcome to another installment of Show to Be with Mike G, the show of life, the show of UT Austin, the stock market being at the right place at the right time, and of course, wine. Today's guest is Mr. Alex Andrawes, the founder of personalwine.com, a service that allows you to pick great wines with a personalized label and a personalized experience, and also the owner of the Red Room Lounge in Austin, Texas. Talk about a lot of different things. I'm on a wine kick personally after the Thanksgiving holiday and sharing a few great glasses with my dad, having some conversations that as a child I never thought I would have as an adult with him. Things change when you get older, and wine seems to be a wonderful way to share great conversation. So I hope you guys enjoy this chat with Mr. Alex Andrawes.
It is.
It's
very interesting because he doesn't have any, he will tell you the stories.
Unfiltered?
Unfiltered.
Amazing, yeah.
Yeah, like blunt. Yeah. I was coming up this hill and I blew this guy up with a grenade. I'm just like, wow, okay.
I like how passe it is to him. It's like, well,
Okay.
once you do it a couple of times.
Yeah.
How long were you guys out there?
We were just a day in and came back.
Oh, cool.
I was responsible for cutting up the turkey.
You have to be, right?
So I chopped up that turkey, and there was barely it was just bones.
Yeah,
no meat.
Oh man, yeah. I don't know. You a fan of turkey?
It's kind of one of those. It's a drug in itself. Turkey is a drug. You eat turkey, and if you feel like sitting there and chilling out and passing out,
right,
then you want to eat a turkey. It's like you just eat some turkey, and then you're going to pass out and fade out. Boom.
It's a nice thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, nap inducer.
Right. So if you want to do it twice, then it's all you. That's not me. I'll do it one time and wake up and I got stuff to do.
It's good. I mean, Thanksgiving is the one day a year where you just overeat until you fall asleep.
Yeah, no, it's conspicuous consumption to its maximum, and it's just gluttony. It's fabulous.
It is. It's a great thing. The pie.
Yeah.
And I mean the pie is a white bread topic, but the pie is fucking good.
Dude, I love apple pie crust. Oh my god,
so
wow.
Good.
Oh.
Yeah, this whole Thanksgiving this time around, I hadn't done this before, but we set up stations in the kitchen. My dad's been a cook for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, I'm just going to do prep for you. So I learned, so now the takeaways,
yeah,
I've learned how to make pie crust like a maniac, which is great.
Yeah.
And I can saute some vegetables, which is good.
Dude, you know what else I realized about Thanksgiving?
What's that?
You can tell whether people are going to have a successful marriage or a failure of a marriage.
Oh, that's good.
Because the man always wants to come in and cut the turkey.
Right.
And it's the man in the kitchen with, it's this husband and wife, spouse, partner, whatever. Mm-hmm. They're in the kitchen and they're basically, somebody wants to cut up the bird, but the other one's making the cranberry sauce. And it's kind of like, all right, who's like, I want the knife. I want the knife.
The protein is king.
And then you start seeing, okay, well, these people actually get along in the kitchen. So I think they've got a good future.
That's actually a great point. My parents, I think they know the boundaries now. It's like my mom said, I just get out of the kitchen because I came in, do prep, tell me what to do.
Right.
I got no dog in this race. I'm just trying to make sure that it's a success for you, Dad.
That's right.
But tying this back to wine, actually. So my dad, for some time, he wasn't really drinking. Despite me being in the booze industry, mm-hmm. He wasn't really drinking. But we had these great moments in front of a campfire over wine this time.
Wow.
And I took that step in, right? He drank bourbon in the 70s, but I haven't seen him sip whiskey ever since I was born, So I was thinking about these moments, right? Whether it's spirits or wine, but for he and I, that was a moment we'd never had, sipping wine, talking politics, but in a nice, kind of respectful way.
In the woods?
More or less, right? Northern Texas, they have this acreage. It's really, really beautiful. But I was thinking about that. And you being so involved in wine and so passionate about it, can you think of a time where you were just sitting, you and somebody, you and a woman, you and a man, drinking wine, and it was one of those profound conversations?
Profound conversations. Yeah, no, it happens with such a high degree of frequency that I think I'm just generally like a super blessed individual.
Yeah, I love it. It's one of the best parts of being a human.
Right.
Is just being able to have those conversations.
Right. I think like one thing that was pretty interesting was like about two weeks ago or 3 weeks ago, I was in Manhattan and I went to go have wine with a friend of mine who is, runs a big family office, and he runs like 3 very big companies. He owns them. He invited me to the Grand Havana Room, which is a cigar club. Oh, yeah. But he brought like 15 bottles of wine that go back to 1952, 1964, 66. Wow. And then, nothing older than 1970, and we were like drinking all these really old wines. And then I walk by the bathroom and I see Al Sharpton, and I'm just like,
Reverend Al Sharpton?
Exactly. And he's just sitting there drinking and having a drink and in a cigar room at the very top of Manhattan. And I'm just like, wow, you just walk by these guys and they're right here. And, and then, or, other times you'll just be sitting there like a friend of mine is an author by the name of Tucker Max, who
I know that
so
guy,
so Tucker's a friend. And, the other, like yesterday, he came over to the Red Room and drank wine, and we have our sommelier there. His name is Darren Scott. He's a great sommelier and general manager of Estate Wine Brokers, which is another company that we run. And Tucker's sitting there, talking wine, but talking wine as a to me is more of a like a layman, peer to peer, good friend,
right.
Like as if you were getting into it. But his knowledge is very deep. But he's really good at explaining wine, almost like you're like a bunch of guys around a softball field drinking wine, right? It's like a little locker room talk because it's got to be because it's Tucker Max and he's awesome. But like but there's that other side of Tucker, which is like he's and the one thing that's really interesting about Tucker, like you just don't know about it, is like the dude loves champagne.
Really?
And I don't like champagne. I'm sorry to say that because
is sparkling in general or just specifically champagne?
No, just anything with bubbles in it.
Really?
And there's a reason why I don't like it. I don't like it because it doesn't like me, so I'm mad at it. Right? I'm mad at champagne because I
mutually assured destruction, right?
Yeah, right. Because I would love to love champagne because I kind of like Samuel L. Jackson did in a movie. He was like, I am champagne.
Yeah.
Sometimes I feel like champagne, but I'm like, I can't have any because my body doesn't agree with it.
Really?
So it's like, and you're sitting next to a friend who's explaining wine in layman's terms, and then you're sitting next to your friend who's a professional, and he's, and the comparison in the discussion between the two people is like night and day. You've got the dude over here speaking the King's English,
right,
and then you got your buddy over there talking jive. It's like,
that's so great.
Yeah.
I think that's the piece about spirits and wine that allow you to think about it in a different way. Sometimes we tune out.
Right.
It's like, blackberries, baking spices. I mean, okay, cool. Blue Skittles. Fuck yeah. All right, well, now I'm paying attention again. Bluebell Mexican vanilla ice cream. Like, bring it back to the people. Bring it back to the things that harken us back to a more familiar time, whether it's being a kid or just things we indulge in,
Yeah.
So what was he in town for? Was he doing a book? He has another book out, or
he lives here in Austin.
Oh, I didn't realize that.
Yeah, no, he moved here to Austin like a few years ago.
No kidding.
No, it was really interesting. He rented our place for South by Southwest, and when he walked in, it was just this kid is actually a little bit rated R, so like I'll dub it down a bit. Like,
I put the E on every one of these episodes.
Well, it's like it was the classic. It was just like, oh, this is perfect. This is exactly what I thought he was going to be like. And he's funny, but he does it in such a funny, like fun spirited way. He's a very fun spirited guy. Yeah. He's, and then as I got to know him, like now he's married. He has a wife and he has 2 children. Wow. And he's just like. He's just like, so anyways, you get to meet these people in the alcohol business because you're in the entertainment side of the business. Right. So, a lot of times, it could be somebody who's very, very famous, and then they walk in and you're like, you're kind of apprehensive because you don't know if you really want to get to know this person.
Absolutely.
Because you don't want to have a negative impression of this person.
Don't ruin Die Hard for me, Bruce Willis. I want it to still be good.
No, not at all.
Yeah.
And like, for example, 2 years ago for South by, I get a phone call, and that's exactly how it works. My phone rings at South by, and it's always somebody's manager, and they're like, "Hey," and then so this guy was like, "Hey, this is who I am." I actually knew the guy. He was just like, "Hey, Snoop wants to come in and DJ at your place for like an hour."
Right.
I was just like, "I don't have to ask me twice."
Yeah, sure.
Please.
We're not having gin, but it's all right. We'll make it work.
Right. So he comes in, and I basically was like, I wonder what Snoop Dogg drinks. I wonder if he likes wine. And the dude gravitated right towards the wine, and he really likes like Napa Cab, and he likes Italian. He likes Italian. His manager was got him into some Italian Brunello di Montalcino, and just a really interesting guy, and then he ended up staying there for like 2.5 hours and DJing.
Yeah.
And you get to end up hanging out with this guy afterwards, and and then you're like, this guy's awesome. And then you have other guys who are not,
right,
and you're just like, boy, I could go home right now and have better times.
It's so strange. It's mixed, and
right.
But finding that thing, alcohol for one is a great. I mean, obviously it's a great social lubricant, but it is a great thread in which to relate to people that don't want to fucking talk about being on tour all the time.
That's
you
right.
know what I mean? They don't want to talk about the music.
Yeah.
But start talking about cabs, start talking about sparkling, even if it doesn't play well with you. Yeah. Then you open this whole other door, and then there are people that are beyond the artist.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's really, really important.
But the interesting thing is, I think the reason why they. So I think of wine as more of like the conduit, as your microphone, right?
Yeah.
To talk to the other artist, which is inside the bottle, which is the winemaker who made the wine. And most winemakers and actually most sommeliers really are artists. So these guys and gals, they're like, and you obviously June very well. So June Rodel is a master sommelier, one of the very few amount of female master sommeliers, and she's so sweet. And it's just like when you talk to these people. They're artists, and you realize that they are artists, and they have their craft and their trade. And that's the one thing that I really loved about wine was like, wow, this is like true art. And these people take extreme pride in their art, whereas like the average person who sat there and tried wine from this barrel and this barrel that were made in the same room using the same grapes, using the same oak barrels, brand new French oak from XYZ cooperage, they make wine, and this barrel is so just slightly different enough to where this person goes, no, this one does not make the cut, and this one does. And I'm just going, wow, they taste incredibly similar to me. I don't understand how you just made that determination, but I love it. I love what I see.
Exacting production skills.
Right. Using really just your senses and instinct and obviously some chemistry.
And some emotion.
Absolutely, without question. Yeah.
Absolutely.
You see these guys who, you go to Sonoma, not so much in Napa really, but like you go to Sonoma, you still find proprietors who are on site, who are the winemakers, and you walk into the tasting room and there they are, and then they give you a tour and you look at their hands and their hands are just beat to hell. They're just beat to shit. They've got they're bleeding, or like they've got cuts and all kinds of stuff. That's because and then you go from one winery to the next winery, and one winery has just this I call it it's groomed. The vineyard is groomed, it's meticulous and beautiful, and you go to this other one and it's just unruly.
But it's working conditions.
That's right. Yeah, that's right. So an example there is like this winemaker that I met a few years ago. His name is Dick Peterson, and he's a legendary winemaker. His daughter's Heidi Barrett, who made like Screaming Eagle and La Sirena, and a bunch of different Amuse Bouche. So like I went to his house in Napa Valley, and his house is surrounded by very large, tall trees that are very like in close proximity to each other, and he takes me to his vineyard, behind his home, and it's like I'm looking at the leaves of this Pinot Noir varietal that are fuzzy like a cactus, like a fuzzy cactus. Right, okay. And I'm going, what the fuck is this? What is this plant? Like this? Are these grapes? He's like, yeah. So I was like, but I've never seen grapes with like the grape leaves with fuzz on them. He goes, Alex, this is mine. And he goes, oh wow. He goes, so what happened was there's a graveyard with a church in Wales. And one year, UC Davis, I was at UC Davis, and we got a call that these people have been this church has been making wine for hundreds of years using the grapes that grow in the back of the cemetery.
Oh, that's imagine all the airborne stuff. That's just
and it's in Wales, so it's freezing. I mean, it's like freezing.
Very civilized.
Right. And these nuns are making wine, but they wanted to know. Eventually they wanted to know what they were making, right? And so they basically sent him clippings, and actually he flew there. He saw that it was unusual and brought back clippings, and subsequently the very next year, after hundreds of years, the vines died.
In Wales.
In Wales, gone. So the poor nuns, they don't have any more wine to drink, so they got to go to the store and buy wine now. It sucks. But like Dick Peterson has the clone, and he's the only person in Napa Valley who's got this one vineyard with this one clone of grapes that, in theory, goes back, in lineage to varietals that are just like, you're talking about isolating a very specific strain of anything, or
like what we could consider an extinct species,
extinct species, right? So basically, he kind of found that amber, the piece that was stuck on the amber, but alive, So this guy really has the only, and so I was just like, Dick, this is freaking amazing. Like, what are you doing with this wine? He's making sparkling red wine. And I'm like, well, that's really interesting. I was like, why don't you clone this varietal and mass market? Mass market. He goes, Alex, I don't need the money. He's just like, you have to understand, this is mine, and I'm the only guy who has this. And I'm like, I get it. He's an artist.
Well, so this is a great segue, because I've seen you with pictures of guitars. I suspect music is a really important thread for you, but this all starts prior to the wine thing.
Right.
You're a Texas dude, is that right? You grew up in Texas?
No, not exactly. So I was born in Dallas, but when I was really young, when I was kindergarten, I started in kindergarten. We moved to England, and
oh, really? Where about?
Just outside of London, about 45 minutes. I went to school there for a year, and then we moved to Tunisia, North Africa.
Wow!
And so in Tunisia, there was no TV, there was no McDonald's, there was no Taco Bell, there was like
a lot of opium, though, presumably.
Hash. There's hash.
Thank you.
Yeah, there's hashish, and like Tunisia is actually a very liberal, at that time was a very liberal Islamic country, mostly French influence. And a lot of people don't realize it, but next door is Algeria. And in the 1800s, Algeria alone had more cultivation under vine than the entire Europe.
Because of the French, right?
Yeah, exactly. And just Algeria. And then obviously when Islamic fundamentalism kind of encroached its way into Algeria, that just went away. Because
so mind if I ask, so what was taking you to all these exotic places as a kid?
My dad was in the oil and gas business,
okay.
and he was he was based out of North Africa, and so there, I was while I was there, I turned 6, and then at 6, my mom would give me a little bit of wine at the table. And then, what fascinated me was my dad, every weekend or every other weekend, we would go do archaeological digs. And so we would go look for Roman pottery and just Roman artifacts or Phoenician or Byzantine artifacts. Yeah. And we found a lot of like wine vessels, a lot of them, like, a few dozen at least. And just like, pottery and coins and all kinds of other stuff. And my dad had a deal with the president of Tunisia at that time to like fund digs and keep a few pieces here and there. Wow. So it's like 1 out of 100 pieces you got to keep as long as it wasn't culturally important. So we have this collection of a few hundred pieces.
Do you have any personally that you particularly find more exceptional than others?
Yeah, no, there's a few of them that are super interesting. Like there's a large wine amphora, which is about 4 feet tall.
Wow.
It's about 1.5 feet wide, and it's just really, really heavy. And
what's it made of?
It's made of clay. Clay. And you know what killed the Romans? No. Actually, what was lead poisoning from the clay. From the clay.
Yeah.
So they were drinking wine, which was like really good for you, right?
Right.
But they were drinking wine out of the wrong vessel.
Seep all that lead out, man.
For hundreds of years. So you're wondering if they just killed that lead out of their diet, if they would have lived a little longer than 1,000 years.
Conquer even more.
Right. So that's kind of where it comes from. So like the history of wine for me started from more of like a historical perspective, and then moved into the taste perspective, and then kind of like, and then I, obviously I went to UT. I got fucking wasted on beer for 4 years. I took a little for
but
3 years.
You guys came back. How old were you when you came back to Texas?
So I came back to Texas and finished high school at Clements High School in Sugar Land, Texas. And I understand you're from Katy.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah, you're right across the street.
I know it.
And
we're rich now. We weren't rich when I went.
No, but now you guys
people.
are.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Cinco Ranch and us. We're like this, man.
That's right. Yeah. That's right. We're like, yeah, you guys. Let's go to the club together.
Yeah, that's right.
So I finished there, and then went to UT. And then so UT I studied economics, and then like in senior year in college, I was drinking with a friend. And when we both turned seniors, we took a trip to Kerrville, and on the way to Kerrville, we stopped at the wineries, and we just really fell in love with wine again. Yeah. And then I realized that, like, okay, well, if you actually drink wine and you're a senior in college, and chicks are actually going to find you a little bit more sexier,
yeah, sure.
and I needed as much game as I could possibly have.
What? But you don't seem like an awkward guy. You're pretty articulate. Why would you need game? We're not. Either of us are very tall. Maybe that's what it is.
No, dude, I'll just take any help I can get.
That's fair. That's
totally
fair.
So booze definitely was high up on the list as a tool,
as a mechanism.
Yeah, but wine made it sexy.
Yeah.
So that wine threw me over that hump, and so like I basically, so we were sitting at a bar, and we're like, so what do we want to do after college? And he was just like, we should start a personalized wine company. I was just like, what? He's like, yeah, it's like there's nobody doing it online. It's 1999. There's nobody doing it. Like, we should do it. I'm like, okay, that sounds like a great idea. And so we started it, and then early on he kind of went in another direction. I ended up buying him out. We're still really good friends right now. But I just kept going, and started building. So basically, what it was is I was working for a stockbroker in college.
Yeah.
And this guy was like, hey, I want you to go to Costco and buy wine and remove it and do some personalized labels for me.
Okay.
And I was just like, absolutely. Like, that sounds like a great idea. And so that was kind of like the premise. So it was like, hey, let's start a personalized wine company. This guy's asking me to kind of do the same thing. I was like, oh, wow, this is like, so, and then I did it for him. 3 other people asked me to do it for them.
Right.
And
you saw some trend, and things are moving along.
Right. So it was like,
but that can't. So taking it back just a second. So you're in school. You're doing economics. Is that right?
Right.
What did you think you were gonna do? Because we all start somewhere, and then we diverge in this whole other direction.
Yeah, dude, I just wanted to be a bus driver. Just work work for Cap Metro.
No shit.
No, I'm totally fucking with you. Sometimes that sounds actually kind of fun.
Not bad.
Right. No.
Keep ringing the bell. You just open the door.
Hey, man, they're happy to see you. They're they put a couple coins in the jar, and then you take them off.
Going forward.
Exactly. No, you know what? I really didn't know, man. I was just like
doing it.
Yeah, I was gonna take a year off. I thought about going into like mergers and acquisitions, but like I made a lot of money in the stock market when I was in college. Yeah. But so
how do you know how to do that? I was not a lesson that I had learned from my folks or from my friends. Where does this influence and this kind of insight come for you? So you know to be wise with your money in college? What the fuck are you thinking?
Oh, dude, that was pure luck too. So basically, I was working for a stock brokerage company, and I was working behind the cage, sorting the confirmations, the order confirmations. Okay. So I was seeing what these guys were buying for their clients.
Right.
So I just started replicating their orders. Right.
Okay.
And then one of these guys goes, if you do some my Christmas present. No, he wanted some Cuban cigars, and I knew somebody who sold Cuban cigars. I was like, hey, here's this guy who sells Cuban cigars over here. He was like, hey, if you can get me some Cuban cigars, I will give you 100 shares of InfoSpace at the IPO price of $15 a share. I was like, sure, I'll take it.
Yeah.
And so I took that, and that went to like 100, 150, and I sold it at 100. I made a bunch of money there. Wow. And then did like 2 or 3 more consecutive buys, and then made a good chunk of cash. And then, so what I did was I took that cash. I lost a bunch too, because in 01, it hit everybody pretty hard. But I was still ahead, and so I used that cash to build personal wine. So I went and bought, some inventory, and I made a mistake. I went and bought like 300 cases of Texas wine, which, Texas does make great wine, but like, if you don't have the demand for, 300, 600 cases of Texas wine, it sits there for a while. So I eventually had to. I just basically use it as a way to like just gift people.
So this makes sense. All right, this makes some sense. Okay,
Yeah.
so now you have this kind of just amazing eye-opening conversation about personalizing wine. You're like, wait a minute, I had some experience doing that with a Costco bottle, and so let's do it for real. Yeah, and so looking at an Oklahoma City NBA, right?
Yeah, that's Oklahoma Thunder. So like one of my friends and business partners is a part owner of the Oklahoma Thunder, and every year I go and have dinner with them or see them, and then I just give them that bottle. And she's a huge Thunders. Like she owns part of the Thunders, so she's like
killer.
that. So what we do is we engrave the bottle. So what we do now is every year these winemakers who I've gotten to know for many years, 16 years now, we call them up randomly and say, hey, if you have any extra wine this year, we'd love to buy, whatever else you have. And so, like for example, we'll do, this one is the one that you're drinking right now.
Would you tell me a little bit more about it, because it's really lovely, and I'm just gonna keep drinking it.
That's exactly what I want you to drink this wine. So this wine is like a perfect example of what we do. So the guy who so this is from Diamond Mountain Vineyards, which is the top of Napa Valley. It comes from the oldest winery, oldest mountain fruit, and it's the highest elevation winery in Napa Valley, called Constant. And this is their 2013 Napa Valley Cab, and we bought 10 barrels of it, and we basically private labeled it under our own brand. And it's just, to me, it's an amazing wine. I mean,
it's incredible.
No, and that comes from a relationship that I had with the family. Before Freddie Constant died, developed a great relationship with him. He owned 200 radio stations, and he sold it to Clear Channel and bought the top of Diamond Mountain. This place is like heaven on earth. If Zeus was alive and he was in the wine business, this would be his place to live. Like, it's so cool. And then and so you go there, and so you can see 3 different valleys from one spot. And if you get there before 10, there's clouds covering it, right? So you're in a sea of clouds. So like you're kind of like Lando Calrissian of wine. And then like 10:30, when the sun hits over and the clouds start dissipating, you can start seeing like all the wine, just like 2 valleys. Yeah. And it's the top of Diamond Mountain. So it's part of it sits in Sonoma, and the other part of it sits in Napa. And so this wine is just an amazing Napa Valley Cab. It's not as extracted as most of the cabs, but that's just general. So the difference between the way we do it and the way they do it is, we filter the wine. They don't. So their wines are a lot more dense, but same fruit profile and everything like that. It's just
a little tighter. That's what plate filtering does. You take those particulates out.
Exactly.
Not to get nerdy, but filtering is big. Yeah,
it's the difference between, and in wine, it's the difference between being approachable now or being approachable, in 5 to 7 to 10 years.
Interesting. Okay.
So filtering basically just makes the wine more elegant. Certainly, in my opinion, more old world versus new world wines that are certainly more dense, fruit forward, rich wines they have that thick kind of jammy texture to them. And this is definitely kind of somewhere in between.
Yeah.
And so that's what we do. So we go buy these wines. They're finished. We don't manipulate them.
Right.
And then the only thing we may do is we may filter it, and then we bottle them, and we put our brand name on them. But we also sell the usual suspects that are out there, like Silver Oak Camus, and we engrave those bottles. And so some wineries will ship us wines with their original winery back label, and we'll custom label and engrave those.
Mod it as
right.
But what year are we talking that this all started? Probably shortly after you got out of UT, right?
Right. No, it started right out of UT.
Almost immediately.
Immediately. And then in year 3, I got $100,000 order from HBO.
Oh my God.
To do the personalized wine for the HBO miniseries of Rome.
Oh, yeah.
And it was 12,000 bottles, and I had 30 days to do it. And I did it was me and my cousin and I think the girlfriend that I was dating at that time, because it was before I was married.
Yeah,
and
right.
So it was she was free labor, But at the end of believe me, she was not free labor. But
never is, man.
No, but at the end of the 12,000 bottles, I literally had no more fingerprints on my fingers.
Rubbed off.
they rubbed off from the adhesive, the stickers, the labels that we were putting on the bottles. Like, so I had no, it would be perfect time to go rob a bank, but like,
absolutely,
I was busy bottling.
So what we could consider one of the apexes or one of the milestones you're delivering, it's 12,000 or 16,000?
That was 12,000.
12,000 bottles of wine, customized labels and packaging for HBO. How old were you at this point?
28.
Man, so that's pretty great.
There's the not so great. The not so great.
What's the not so great?
The not so great is when you get an order from an oil company that could be like solid repeat business.
Yeah.
And they want personalized wine, and they want it delivered in San Francisco, and to be there by Sunday. And you take the order and you tell this person to their face, "I'm going to deliver on time."
Right.
And you get a call from them saying, "Hey, I checked my tracking number and it says I'm not going to get this wine till Monday." Fuck you! And they're so mad at you. They're like, you're like, oh my god. And it was like, I think at that time when I figured out that she cursed me out so bad. It was like
We're talking one day too. I mean, that's
I'm not going to say her name, but I'm going to use a fake name. I was like, "Becky, here's the deal. I just got one question for you." She's like, "What?" I was like, "If I get you this wine by Sunday, are you still going to be my customer, or are you that pissed off at me?"
Right.
And she was just like, "You get me this wine by Sunday, I will love you." She was like, "Don't worry. I will not be mad at you. I will still order wine from you." I was like, "Okay, I'll call you back in 10 minutes. And I looked at my business partner at the time, and I was like, "This was your fuck up." Okay, so here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna go relabel all of this wine right now, and while we're relabeling it, one of us is gonna go get a van, and we're gonna drive this fucking wine to San Francisco, and we're gonna be there for her on Sunday.
Where were you?
And he was like, "Go for it, man." I was I was like, "No, dude, you're fucking driving, and I'm gonna sit in the passenger seat."
And label.
No,
you'd be done at that point.
It would be done, but I was like, "We're driving this wine, 15 cases of wine to San Francisco. We are not going to let this person down." And we drove the whole way through, and we like 20. I'd like to say it was like 32 or 34 hours of straight driving with 0 stops.
Dude, from Texas to San Francisco.
Yeah, just straight.
Insane.
And it was like right when gas turned $2 a gallon.
Right. So you're losing. You got to be losing money.
You're losing money. You're just sitting there like losing money, and going, you know what? Like if she buys again, it'll be worth it.
Yeah.
And so she did, and then we actually won a customer service award because of that scenario.
Wow.
That story created a customer service award that we won in Austin. That actually was pretty amazing. And then this year we actually won Inc. 5000, one of the fastest growing companies in America. So we're still back. We're still growing really, really nicely now. I mean, we've got a great team. We've got an amazing CEO and an amazing team of just operators running that company.
Right.
And so what I did was I took a step back and I pulled him in as CEO. So I hired him as director of technology, and then he became CTO, and then he became CEO. And he's very young, but he's just a superstar. So what I did was I actually went to the University of Texas, and I took a case of Bordeaux to the dean of computer sciences. And I was like, and this guy like really expensive French Bordeaux.
Yeah.
And I was like, boom. And inside that box was a bottle of Yquem, because I knew he liked Yquem, Chateau Yquem, which is a sticky kind of dessert wine. And it's just a beautiful wine. And he was just, I was like, "Hey, who is Facebook, Google, and Intel? Who is the guy that they're recruiting?"
Oh, shit.
And he was just like, "I got one for you." And I was like, "And I got even better." I was like, "What?" He goes, "He plays football for UT." I was like, "What?"
Oh my God,
I was like,
really?
"All right, I'll take it." So like the business changed when I started to really hire really amazing people.
Yeah.
So for about 10 years, I was really the smartest guy in the room, and it was actually a very bad thing. And then I fired myself, and that was the greatest day of my life, was when I fired myself. And that was when I could actually go back and start meeting people, shaking hands, and bringing business and selling wine, which is actually more of my passion. And I do it without this wine has essence of jasmine, and no, I don't.
How do you talk about wine? I've heard all kinds of ways.
Very simple. I use very simple descriptors, and I really like, in my mind anyway, the way that it works is I just think of the food that I would like to eat the most while I'm drinking this wine.
Makes sense.
And for me, I go straight there, and then I start, like trying to think of what this wine would just be perfect with. And then that's where I kind of start breaking wine down. And I think people find it to be more approachable when you talk about wine in relation to food than talking about wine, as itself, because people just feel inadequate when you start talking about things like that. And
but if you say, well, this wine reminds me, it's the earlier Black Sabbath days.
Exactly. No, there's
totally
definitely ways that you can describe wine, with music. You can say, Chateau Margaux to me is Aubrey Hepburn. She's a little rusty, like some moxie, some personality there. She can be a tough broad if she needs to be. She's got personality, but she's smooth and elegant, and she's sexy. She's beautiful. It's just like, so you can or you can say, this Napa Cab is Bruce Willis. I mean, dude. This thing is bringing the thunder all day long. Boom.
And you still want to smoke a cigarette with him after he's done all that. It's like still kind of approachable.
Let's jump out of a building.
Yeah, you're reticent to like do it, but you still will do it. You sit there, smoke a cigarette with Bruce Willis. Well, this is amazing. So you step away from what is it kind of like a very leader capacity to get more grassroots back to the people, talk about the wine and what you love. And how does this transition into you building or establishing the venue? Red Room Lounge, right, on 3rd Street, is that right? Yeah. What does that transition look like?
That was a mistake. That was a beautiful mistake, right?
Beautiful.
So,
okay.
Yeah, so I was hanging out with a sommelier who works over at Papa Steakhouse in Houston, Texas, by the name of Bill Elsey, he was a founding sommelier at the Red Room Lounge. He's a great sommelier, very knowledgeable guy. So we were sitting there that was literally our conference room, and we turned it into a wine bar because we were drinking late at night there, and he was just like, this would be a great venue. I was like, yeah, it really would be. I mean, we've got a lot of people walking in here for South by Southwest. And then he came on board, and then we turned it into a wine bar, but we did it very nonchalantly. We just didn't really turn it. All we did was really just build the bar, because since we have a winery license, we have a tasting room, and we're allowed to have a tasting room there. So all we did was kind of just re-engineer the room a little bit and turn it into a bar. And then from there, we quickly realized that, this is actually, people want to come here and they want to spend wine and they want to drink wine. So we better have a pretty cool wine list. So let's start, let's have a wine list. So, and then it turned into, like one of Austin's hottest wine bars. Like if people travel to Austin, and if they love wine and they're that part of that wine bar crowd, they come to the Red Room Lounge. Because
what kind of aesthetic for you when you're drinking wine? I imagine you managed to replicate it in the Red Room Lounge.
Yeah.
What's the perfect situation, the perfect environment to enjoy?
A cellar. The basement.
A lot of wood?
No. Brick.
Or literally a basement?
Brick and wood.
Yeah.
Brick and wood. You just have to feel like you're in a basement. In a cellar, and it's perfect because it's literally like 5 steps down. It's the space wasn't being utilized before. I mean, it just looked like shit before we got there, and then we just really fixed it up and made it look cool, and then put wine cages and wine lockers there for people to store wine, and then we just built our offices. We built our offices there, and then the bar just kind of like naturally took hold because we're a block away from the convention center, and all these people are looking for any space they can find to do any kind of activation pop-up. And so we just opened our doors, and we were like, hey, come taste wine. Come do a blind tasting, and if you guess what varietals these are, then you win a case of wine. And it was just like, we just did it just for fun.
Yeah.
And all these people came in, and it turned into, this should be a wine bar, and all these, and actually, by the way, one person came in, and we had like Tempranillo from Australia, and this person got all the wines right and took a freaking case home. I was just like, there's no humanly way anybody's going to guess these wines right. But somebody did. And I
was it someone that ended up being notable, or just a guy or girl?
Just
off the
a
street?
dude passing in the night, man. Just
crazy.
Came in, was like, this is what it actually, it wasn't even a man, it was a female. She was awesome. She was super cool. Worked for a .com company, I I think she worked for Yelp. She was
Okay.
she was a big wig at Yelp. So she came in and guessed it, and I was just like, wow, like the palate. And most people don't know this, but women have a
Super more sensitive about it, right?
without question, women can smell and they make amazing sommeliers because they have senses that just men, I think, just don't really naturally have.
Yeah.
I mean, so especially like my wife when she was pregnant, she could smell anything. So that's why I could not eat Akushi Picadillo tacos when my wife was pregnant because she would tell me to get the hell out of the house.
Yeah.
So so that turned into the Red Room, and like the Red Room just turned into its own little beast, and it's like it was luck.
How much time are you spending there now?
Well, I mean, I work there.
Mm-hmm.
I spend time working there during the day, but I don't spend a lot of time there at night just because I have children and I have a wife.
Two kids, right?
Yeah, two girls, two beautiful girls, little girls, toddlers. But I'll spend at least 2 nights there a month.
Yeah.
I'm there 2 nights a month, and usually I'm there till it opens at 5, and I'm usually gone. I usually go home around 6 to 7. So I'm there for like an hour or two, but I'm not there when it's at its peak at 10, 9, 10 o'clock. It's just it's jamming.
Well, so I was reading, and I do these dossiers of people because the internet's a great tool for me.
Right.
So Austin Business Journal, they wrote a nice profile on you here in September.
Very nice of them.
Talking what it seemed like another transition for you.
Right.
In Provino, is that the right way to?
So it's Estate Wine Brokers. They kind of did so Provino is the company that owns all of the wine companies. But Estate Wine Brokers, like what happened was during the recession, we didn't dip in sales, but we plateaued, and the fine wine market started to kind of crumble. Except for the Uber market. The Uber market got stronger. So fine wine would be like $25 a bottle to $175 to basically $75 to $100 per bottle at that time. Those wines suffered tremendously. So those wines were all kind of going to wines till sold out or wine flash sale sites.
Right.
And it actually that turned to our advantage at Personal Wine because for Personal Wine, we called the wineries up and we were like, do not send your wine to this company to go die. Mm-hmm. Give it to us. Let us engrave or custom label it for people, and we'll sell it for 10% more than you sell it for on your website.
Right.
So they loved us. And that's when we became very popular in the wine business with the wineries where we kind of earned their respect. Mm. At that same time period, we weren't making very much money because just generally speaking, luxury goods sales were low at that time. And so what happened during the 2008, actually it really hit us in 2009 and 10, was I just, instead of like not paying or paying my employees less or laying them off, I basically took my salary down to zero, and I needed to make money. And I had amassed a wine collection at that time, and I just started selling it off and going, oh wow, I bought that bottle for $100. I could sell it for $200 or whatever.
Right.
And so I started looking at the prices of wine, and then I started, okay, you know what? There's a guy in New York who has a wine collection here, and he wants to sell it to somebody in San Francisco. Just arrange a deal between these two people, and we make a margin like a broker margin.
Right.
And then in the process, I can build my own wine collection too, so I can kind of build it back. Mm-hmm. Because I love wine and I want to have a wine collection, and I usually do. But I trade my own wine and I drink my own wine quite a bit. Take it to dinners and use it for entertaining.
Sure.
But so in the process, I was like, wow, this is super fun. Like it's exciting. Every day's different. And then I started to learn about the Uber wine market. So the stuff that is basically like $150, really over $200 a bottle, between $200 a bottle and like $7,000 a bottle, wow. $10,000, $15,000 a bottle, all the way up to a bottle of wine that we sold a few years back for $109,000, which was a large format.
Can
wine.
you, so as a guy who hasn't had a bottle of wine that's in that echelon, how different is the experience for something? If it is different, mind you, I'm assuming that it is. How different is the flavor of something that's considered that valuable?
So you really, that's a really great question. A lot of it has to do with the experience, who you're with, what day it is. Did you meet the girl of your dreams that day? Did you land this big deal? Get a new job? Whatever, just a great day. if you drink a really nice bottle on a really great day, that wine bottle will taste better on that day than it would any other day, right? But if you drink that bottle of wine on a really bad day, there's a chance that it could just kind of be like, whatever, and that sucks, because like you really want to drink it on the best possible day. And there are exceptions to that rule, but we won't go there. But like, so for me, when I've had these wines, let me give you an example. 1976 Romani Conti. I had that for my birthday. I sold that bottle to a friend of mine, right? I brokered a deal where he got that bottle and I made a little bit of cash or whatever, not much, but because he's a friend. I don't make money off my friends. I try not to, at least. And there you go. So, but the guy was like, I gave him a really good deal on this bottle, made a couple $100, and then a month and a half later, he shows up at my door on my 40th birthday this year.
Yeah.
And he has the bottle of 1976 Romani Conti in his hands. And this is a $10,000, $12,000 bottle of wine.
Jesus.
And I sold it to him for $8,000, bought it for $7,800, gave it to him for $8,000.
Yeah.
He shows up at my house with this bottle of wine on my birthday. And it's 9:00 at night. And he's just like, I'm coming over. I'll be there in a bit. And we had this. And I'll tell you, that's not a monumental year for Romani Conti, but how many people get to sit there and taste Romani Conti? Probably, I don't know, but in the wine world, people like June and Craig Collins and these guys, Bill in Houston and all of these amazing sommeliers, Alex and Cash and Aspen, they'll taste them.
I guess he's another one too. Anyway,
yeah. So there's an Alex at Cash in Austin. He's an amazing sommelier. These guys are in a place where these wines are the frequency of them being opened is higher, and generally speaking, the people that are coming into these restaurants are fortunate and they're generous, and they'll let them have a little taste of these wines. But the general population will never try these wines ever because they only make a couple hundred, few hundred to maybe even, I think it's like 1,600 bottles of this wine are made in any right.
Crazy, yeah.
So, and that's all over the world. So, and they're mostly traded as a commodity now, as a blue chip item, like a stock. And so so the chances of being in the room when that wine is being opened is very, very rare. And for somebody to come in and bring that to my house with my birth vintage year made that wine extremely interesting, especially since I knew what it was, when it was made, and et cetera. So that was a magical experience.
Lots of things lining up to make it an amazing experience. Yeah.
Exactly. In my own dining room, in my own house, right? A normal place for me.
Right.
So it's like, that is amazing, or just tasting very specific. And then sometimes there are wines that like people have talked about or they have spoken about, and you try it and you're like, I don't get it. Like I don't see why this wine is worth $2,500, $3,000 a bottle. It just doesn't really float my boat. And there are certain wineries that have that, and those are wines that you just buy and sell. And then every once in a while you buy, you get a really good deal on some wine, and you arbitraged it a little bit here and there, and you got 2 or 3 bottles for yourself, and you're like, oh wow, I get to try it. I'm gonna go ahead. I could sell this wine, make $1,000, or I can drink it and see what it's really like.
Totally get that. Yeah. Bourbon for me, so it's the same, but the same concept.
Exactly.
People don't drink. Sometimes it's really frustrating, actually. Now wine is a little bit different, but that people go out of their way to buy bourbon just to sell it, and what they're really missing is how beautiful it can be.
Right.
And I think that's an interesting, almost a modern era kind of thing, because technology and the internet's actually allowed people to do that.
Right.
But do you, given the best and the most rare bottle that maybe you've never come across, would you rather sell it or would you rather keep it and sip it with a good friend?
That's a great question. Like, I think that, okay, I'm going to give you an example. There's very specific wines that if I see them, I'll buy them for myself because I just go crazy over them. So like almost like a cat with catnip. Yeah. So like I found a case of 2010. This is just a couple days ago. 2010 Henri Bonneau Cuvée Celestine Chateauneuf de Pape. And I go ape shit over this wine. It's just, it's just so fucking good.
Yeah.
And it just, just super smooth and in a very concentrated wine. It's a Grenache Syrah Mourvedre blend, and just in off vintages, this guy just produced amazing wines anyway. And so that wine, or Chateau Reyes, which is another Chateau Neuf de Pape, like those are two of my top 5 wines that if I see them, I will.
They're for you.
It's possible that I would fly to go drink a vertical with them and eat dinner. I would drop $500 to $700 to $1,000 to fly somewhere to go have a dinner and taste a vertical of this wine.
Wow.
So for me, I'll travel to go do that. Like I would go travel to go see the Rolling Stones.
That's what I was going to ask. Yeah. So what's the band for you? So the Stones are that way.
I had to go see the Stones. I had some business I had to do in Nashville, and I had to go. I had to, and I ended up going to see the Rolling Stones. I wanted to make sure that I saw the complete Rolling Stones because I've had a chance to go see James Brown. I didn't take it. I had a chance to go see, just some of the most amazing players, and for me, music is my other thing. So it's like I love to go see live music and drink good wine. And, just like some people like to go to tailgate and go to a football game, I would rather pass. I would rather go see an amazing show. So, like, I'll go to Houston to go see Guns N' Roses.
Wait. Did you go see him?
Fuck yeah, I saw him.
Can we talk about that for a second?
I spent $1,500 on tickets for that, for me and my wife and I.
Was it not one of the experiences where, at least for me, and I went back and I thought about it, like, this shouldn't be this good.
Right.
There is something really astonishing about how fucking good this is.
Right.
It shouldn't have been this good since 92.
Right.
What was your impression of the show?
Oh, no. So, like, I saw them in 92. I went to the Use Your Illusion tour.
Yeah.
And I mean, obviously, Axl Rose weighed probably like, 30 pounds, 40 pounds less. But he still looked pretty damn good up there.
Fine. Yeah,
and I tell you, man, that man, his voice, he hasn't lost a thing, man. That guy's,
nothing.
Where do we go now? Yeah. And I was just like, oh, man. That was an amazing. And Slash, that dude.
It's perfect. Duff, great.
I
mean,
everybody.
It shouldn't have been that good, but it was like this weird, brilliant alignment of shit. Like years and climate change and all these things that happens in a wine or happens in a year of distillation came together, and it was a life-changing show for me.
Right. It was kind of like Pink Floyd. Like, I really want to. So when I was in college, my graduation gift was like one of two things, right? And so I either wanted to go see. There was a rumor floating around that Pink Floyd was going to play at the Pyramids on New Year's of 2000. I was like, I'm fucking going to be there for that. Yeah. Like, I have to be there for that. And so I negotiated with my parents. They were like, here, like, what do you want for your graduation? I was like, signed guitar by the Grateful Dead, or tickets to Egypt to go see Pink Floyd reunite.
I don't know which one's easier to come by. That's a good question.
Either. No, they ended up getting me the guitar, the Grateful Dead guitar.
Oh man.
Which is kind of funny because I never have ever missed payroll, and I had to sell that guitar to make my payroll, and then I also had an amplifier, a '68 Bassman amplifier that was owned by and a Leslie Vibratone speaker that was owned by Stevie Ray Vaughan.
Oh my God, are you kidding me?
No bullshit, man.
Jesus.
I cried on that one. That one made me cry. That one made me cry. Yeah.
Oh my God, we're going to have to commiserate after we're done chatting. That's a big loss, dude.
It's a big loss, but like the reality is that these are just material things that just transfer possession from one person to another.
That's a good point.
And the wine business is here because I had to make a sacrifice, and that's what it is.
I absolutely can relate to that, and I think it's a brilliant way to prioritize things.
Right.
So you've done a lot. You were at the right place at the right time for these ideas and innovating in the wine space. Mm-hmm. Where do you go from here? What could be possibly next for you?
Well, I that's actually kind of funny because nobody's really asked me that question. So I invested in. I don't own any stock in the stock market. I just don't have any control over the outcome, so it makes me uncomfortable.
Sure.
Even though it did me well for a while.
Yeah.
So what I did was about 4 years ago, I invested in. So there's these guys from New Zealand that came to me and said, I have this website with 8,800 user submitted cannabis recipes, marijuana infused edibles.
Oh, edibles.
Edibles.
Okay.
Yeah, nothing for sale.
Sure.
Just people posting recipes.
Yeah.
Allrecipes.com for weed. So they were like, "Can you do something with this?" And I was like, "Yeah, I think so." So I basically called. So I called a friend of mine, and then he helped me recruit a CEO from Canada, brought him in, and then I seeded the company. And today it's herb.co, so herb.co, and it's surpassed High Times in traffic a month ago.
Holy shit, that's crazy.
Yeah, so it's got more traffic than High Times. It's got like 7.6 million fans on Facebook, and
wow.
It's just got super traffic, and it's just got cool articles about the cannabis industry. And then I've got another project that I'm working on, but these are like, but my heart and my soul, I love my wine company. Like I always find myself like, every day you fall in love with the wine business because of what it is, and you find that cannabis is actually doing something very similar.
Absolutely.
So it's like almost like your train split its tracks, but you still have two engines, and they're just running in parallel. And the cool thing is, like, the wine industry is very civilized and very classy and methodical, and it's well thought out, and there's great people in the industry. And in the cannabis industry, it's the freaking Wild West, man.
It is, yeah.
It's guns and horses and saloon fights and everything. It's
fending
just
for yourself almost.
Yeah, no, it's tough. It's tough because the federal government says no, and the state government says yes. And it's just like CBD was approved in Texas, but unfortunately, Texas doesn't understand what CBD is, so they go into the People's Pharmacy and take CBD. Low, like 0.5% THC is acceptable, but in CBD CBD delivery, and they just they get their products seized, and because people don't know, and they don't even know how to fucking test it. So it's so that's kind of like, these are areas which I'm extremely interested in. So I continue my focus in wine and weed. So when people say, what are you in? Like, what do you do? Like, I'm in the wine and the weed business. So like, I'm in wine. Like, what are you into? I'm in wine and weed. And what do you do for fun? I play the guitar. I love music.
Yeah.
And what else do you do?
There's nobody that doesn't want to hang out with you.
well, in Texas, it's not legal, so I have to go to like Colorado or California or whatever.
Still road trip, man.
Road trip,
There's
dude. Yeah.
It's brilliant. I think you're ahead of it again. It's because it's just going to be a few years. It will change. And once the TTB or whatever governing body understands how to make money off of it in a kind of holistic, operationalized way, you'll be there. Yeah,
the only difference is that, like, with wine, I love touching and drinking wine and being in, the physical aspect of wine. But in cannabis, I'm only in the pickaxe and shovel side. Like, there's no lifting or touching or selling cannabis. It's just selling air, content, information, community is the way to go in that category, because you can't scale that. Right. So it's like, it's actually very, I don't want to ever be I don't ever want to sell anything except for air and information. Yeah. Because that's just, in that side of the business, it's way more fun to do that than it is to carry anything or do anything, because that's a commodity business. Yeah. So it's like, you see the prices of, and you see these shows, the pot barons and stuff like that. Of course it's enticing. You see, I talk to Wall Street guys all the time. It's like, I used to work for Goldman Sachs. I'm in the weed business now. It's like, what do? I'm a cultivator. Oh wow, so you went from Wall Street to the farm. Yeah. Like, I was like, that's super cool that you made that transition. But for me, that's not my goal. Yeah. So I will never own a MIP, which is an infused processor. I will never be involved in that, or dispensary side. I can't be, and a lot of that has to do with protecting the wine side of my business, because like, this side is federally not approved, right. But it is by the states, and it's certainly becoming more acceptable. Certainly not in our state, but in other states, so I can never touch it, so I can never be around it, but I could talk about it, and we can, I can be part of it.
Information is totally fine.
Information highway is totally cool. But I can't, and I wouldn't want to touch it, because this side over here, which is wine, is so precious and dear to me. Yeah. So that's like, the wine is more of my blood. I'd say that my blood is really made of wine. and my tissue and everything like that, my soul and my heart is in the wine and the cannabis industry. I just believe in it for more of like the general access of the medication for people that need it. There are some people that they need it as a medicine. They should be entitled to have it.
Absolutely.
But either way, they're both medicinal, right? You come home, you've had a shitty day at work, or you've had a great day at work. Shitty day at work, you open the dog shit wine, the Friday night wine, I call it, right? So and you have a great day, you open the amazing bottle.
Yeah.
You open that bottle that makes you go, oh yeah,
It's killer. I mean, you're in such an interesting position amidst those two highways or those parallel tracks, like you said. I hope that the next few years make it a little bit more enticing, a little bit more open, and that we can imbibe in these things a lot, in the same place.
Yeah.
So it's been brilliant chatting with you, man.
Thank you.
And it has opened my mind to wine a lot more. I got one last question for
Please,
you.
fire away.
My dad being this newfounded real wine connoisseur, I'm looking for a bottle to get him that's a little bit nicer than something he would buy himself. It's holidays. We'll drop this episode probably when people are still buying gifts. We're in December officially now. Let's say I'm going to spend $150. What do you think? You think you can get a good value, a nice ass wine for $150?
Let me ask you a question.
Yeah.
What kind of food, what is your dad's favorite meal?
Oh, man, it's great. He loves spicy foods, things that have lots of seasons, fresh spices, things of that nature.
Like spicy as in like hot, heat, or?
Yeah, heat.
So I would say get him 2 bottles. I'd say give him a really nice bottle of Zinfandel from the Russian River Valley, which does well with like Mexican food, and kind of it's got that it's got that equal spice to it. It's just got cherry and pepper. So I would consider that option, and then on the other side, I would say. Which I'll just have it. I'll ship it to you. It's my gift to you, to your dad.
Thanks, man.
But like, and the other side would be, I would give him a bottle of kick-ass, like German Riesling or Alsatian Riesling, which is sweeter. It's got that residual sugar to it, but it breaks down that heat in a way that blends really well with that just little bit of sweetness. Yeah. Not super sweet. I'm just talking about having just a little bit of residual sugar in a wine and having high acidity to break down the spice. Yeah. And so it just meshes really well.
It's amazing. It already makes me want to eat both of those things.
Oh, dude.
I think
awesome.
about it. Man, it's really been a pleasure. Thanks so much for making the time to kind of chat with me. And we got to keep this going. Thanks so much for chatting, Alex.
My pleasure, my brother. Thank you so much for having me.
Well, there we have it. What do you guys think of Alex? We tried some incredible wine. I love the fact you can get a personalized bottle for yourself or for someone you hate or love alike for this holiday season. I'll include a link in the show description so you guys can hop on over and order some wine if you like. I think I'll be doing that for my family this year. It's also good to know that Alex is a rock guy, talking about the Rolling Stones, talking about Guns N' Roses on my mind as of late with the weather. He's not a pretentious wine guy, We talk about some of these labels that cost in the tens of thousands of dollars, and I'm at a loss. You sip some scotch that's $5,000 the bottle, something around 30 years old, and you taste it and you wonder, this is really great, but is it really worth the money? And as Alex illustrates, if it's your 40th birthday, if it's with somebody you love in a place that you're comfortable with and you really enjoy, perhaps that $10,000 bottle of wine is just that epic. But thanks everybody for listening to Show to V with Mike G. No matter if you've completed all of your shopping for this holiday season or if you're getting tired of drinking bourbon straight, which would never really happen, please keep dancing.